Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and join when we're talking football recruiting, just football in general, I guess. Our senior writer at HappyValleyInsider.com, Dylan Callahan-Crawley. Dylan, it is finally here. It's official visit weekend, the first sort of for Penn State because they hosted Ebenezer a week or two ago. But the first big weekend for Penn State. What are we thinking of this list so far before we go one by one?
Yeah, I mean, for a first official visit weekend, or first, true official visit weekend for the program here this summer, it's a pretty good list. There are some big names on this list. In the past, not last year, but before last year, the first official visit weekend would usually be, a bunch of smaller names, not necessarily your top guys. You'd want to save the top guys for later in the official visit season, but that's not the case with this list. There are multiple top targets here for Penn State on campus starting tomorrow. We're recording this on Thursday, so starting tomorrow on Friday, they'll be on campus until Sunday. And, yeah, it should be an interesting weekend in Happy Valley.
All right, so let's jump right into it. Let's go one by one with these guys. Arguably the biggest name to know, or the most likely to commit, I would say, is Lex Cyrus, wide receiver out of Susquehanna. Talk a little bit about his recruitment and I guess what the Nittany Lions' chances are.
Yeah, so overall, I like where the Nittany Lions sit in this recruitment heading into the weekend. We have him as a 3-star here on Rivals, top 15 player in the state. Really nice, speedy wide receiver out of Susquehanna Township. He has an official visit this week in Penn State. Official visit to South Carolina next weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a commitment this weekend. But I think he's probably, if we're saying who could commit, he's going to be one of the more likely guys to potentially commit on that visit. I think he probably wants to see South Carolina on that OV and then maybe a decision after that since he has no other OVs currently scheduled. But overall, Penn State's been trending well in this recruitment for quite a while. We've had a future cast in for him since February, as has Adam Friedman. So I think this is going to continue to progress well for Penn State. I think they, have a strong official visit this weekend and eventually get this one past the finish line. It's just a matter of will it be this weekend or will it perhaps be after that South Carolina visit. This will be his 6th time on campus, according to us. So been a frequent visitor to Penn State, hasn't visited any other school more than, I think, twice. So I think Penn State's in a good spot here and has a chance to finish this one this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Looking next up at the wide receiver board, or sticking with the wide receiver board, Quincy Porter Jr., Bergen Catholic, arguably one of the top receivers. I shouldn't say arguably, is one of the top receivers in the country. What do you think the chances are there? I know this was kind of a late visit. I think it just got scheduled on last Thursday, something like that.
Yeah, it got added really recently. I think Penn State has a fighter's chance. I think I put it in our recruiting battles piece a couple of weeks ago. They have a fighter's chance, but I wouldn't hold my breath right now if I'm a Penn State fan and winning this one. I think Ohio State has the edge probably on everybody right now. Michigan, I think, is in that first tier as well, and then Penn State and Oklahoma are kind of trying to fight to be up at that first tier for Porter. So I still think they have an uphill battle here, but you get these kids on an official visit and you give yourself a chance. They've had success before in these scenarios, so it wouldn't be the craziest recruiting win I've seen by any means, but they definitely will need to put together a very strong visit and then hold on for a couple weeks because he has 3 more OVs after this, and I think is looking at a late June, early or sometime in July decision, if I had to assume. So, yeah.
Another wide receiver coming to campus is Christian Brothers College High School out of Missouri, Corey Sims. He just had a giant leap in the rankings. He went from 242 back in March to, or is this March last year? This might be March last year. No, this is from, 242 overall in February up to 118 in May, and now he's sitting at number 89 in the country. Penn State will get him first, and then Missouri will get him on June 21st. Now, that's a big gap.
Yeah, as a big gap, obviously has 2 weeks there to add more official visits if he chooses.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting one, isn't it? Penn State, Missouri going head to head again. They've done that a couple times this cycle. Obviously, Missouri won the Matt Zollers recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps Penn State can go in Missouri and take one of Missouri's top in-state talents here.
Yeah.
I actually think they have a better chance in this one than I do in the Quincy Porter recruitment. Um, do I necessarily think they're going to win this recruitment? No, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Let me rephrase that. I wouldn't be surprised if they do win this recruitment, but I would not bet on it at this point. Honestly, it's a two-team race right now. But he's spoken highly of Penn State in the past. But can they get him out of Missouri, where he's visited? The Tigers 5 times. The Tigers have been recruiting him very hard for quite a while now. So this is a really interesting recruitment. Just from top to bottom, especially considering that these two met for the Matt Zollers recruitment as well. USC and Nebraska, I think, are two other schools that are in the running here. Obviously, we don't have OVs listed for them just yet, but could be something to watch as well. But I think even with those two schools, it's Penn State, Missouri at the top, and like with Quincy Porter, I think they have a fighter's chance plus even more. I think they're not the favorite, but they're not incredible long shots to win this one either, in my opinion.
Moving on to offensive line, Malachi Goodman, another Jersey kid from Primus Catholic. I had a chance to see him actually at one of the recent showcases they had throughout Jersey and New York.
Yeah.
Phenomenal kid. I actually made the argument with Adam Friedman, our national analyst, that he should be a top 250 kid. Now, he isn't a top 250 kid, but I do expect an update to come to his actually, it already happened. He's a 4-star now. So, yeah, I mean, what are your overall thoughts on where Penn State kind of stands with him? I know he has a long list of official visits.
Yeah, it does have long list of official visits. Penn State, Georgia, Alabama, USC. I think you would agree that right now all the intel points to Goodman probably heading south eventually, whether that be Alabama or Georgia. But Penn State is also right in the mix there. He has a strong relationship with Phil Trautwein. But I think this is just one that, the tea leaves have been pointing towards the south, and it's going to take, I think, a lot for him not to, end up going south. Quite a bit of NIL money down there, obviously.
Of course.
You probably have a little bit of a better feel on this one than me, but that's what I've heard is the South is the likely answer in this one.
Yeah, so he built a very good bond with offensive line coach Chris, and you could correct me actually if I'm wrong on this one. Kapovic, or something
Alabama.
like that. So obviously former Michigan State O-line coach, but now he's at Bama. Bama seems to be in the lead, but Georgia is pushing. Georgia's done very well with New Jersey guys over the past couple years. Actually, Primus Catholic too. If you remember the late Devin Willick, they landed him a couple years ago, and he was making some noise. But yeah, they do pretty well in Jersey if they want, but they don't have Fran Brown anymore, and that was kind of their key to Jersey. So I do think Bama has the lead on this one, and I'd be a little shocked if Bama didn't pull this one off. But like you said, Penn State is pushing, and they have a good shot here if he stays up north.
Yeah, and Penn State's been high on him for a while. I think he's been high on Penn State as well for a while now. So there's definitely high mutual interest. It's just, can they pull him away from Alabama, who's, despite losing Nick Saban, and a lot of that coaching staff has continued to be a pretty damn good program when it comes to recruiting. Obviously, that brand recruits itself. But they're also in the running for Michael Carroll because of the relationships that Chris Kapilovic has been able to form with some of the recruits up here when he was at Michigan State. So definitely going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Next up on the list is defensive end Cedric Works, coming out of Northmont High School in Ohio. Now, he's got a couple OVs I'm looking at. It's Penn State, Cincy, Florida, and in Kentucky. Where does Penn State kind of sit in this one? Because they're one of, I guess you can argue, two of the northern schools that are pursuing him, other than the hometown Cincy.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I'll be honest, it's not a recruitment that I have a totally strong grasp on overall. But like you said, they're one of the two northern schools recruiting him in or receiving an official visit in the upcoming weeks. I think I think there's a quality chance for Penn State here, but I think there's also a couple guys probably ahead of him on their board that they may be willing to take. I think Kentucky obviously is
Not
the
far from
big one
home, of
here to
course.
watch for. What was
Yeah,
that?
I said not far from home, of course. Either
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
everyone like I maybe it's just my head, but I hear Kentucky and Ohio, and I think like they're nowhere near each other. And then you look on the map, and you're like, never mind, I'm completely wrong. Um, but yeah, definitely an interesting one. It'll be intriguing to see what we're kind of hearing about him after he gets to campus this weekend. But
Yeah, but actually, let me see where Clayton, Ohio, generally is
yeah, I
here
was a
for the.
little curious about that as well. I'm
Uh,
assuming it's probably bottom
it's
right.
out near Cincinnati, so
Okay, that makes sense with
yeah,
the
so
Cincinnati thing.
this definitely looks like a recruitment that could go well for Kentucky. I think Penn State has a shot here, but
Hmm.
not necessarily one that I have been keeping a close eye on, and probably won't be keeping a. It'll probably be down the list of recruitment visits this weekend
Gotcha.
for me.
Now, someone that I personally want to keep an eye on, defensive end coming up from Paint Branch High School in Maryland, one of the fastest risers in the 2025 class is,
Yeah,
and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Ivan Kamaju.
yeah, that's probably as good as a guess of mine. Yeah, I mean, this is a recruitment. You look at the official visit schedule: Penn State, West Virginia, Duke, Virginia Tech. No disrespect to those three programs, that's a recruitment that if Penn State pushes, Penn State should win 10 out of
Hmm.
10 times.
Yeah.
So I like where Penn State stands in this recruitment as long as they continue to push. If they tell him that, hey, we're willing to take your commitment, I think there's a good chance that Penn State could land a commitment from him as soon as this weekend.
Hmm.
I have not been able to speak to him recently to the point of him saying like, hey, yeah, that would be a possibility. But the way this recruitment has unfolded, the way you look at the official visits, what Penn State's done in Maryland historically, I think this is one that shapes up for Penn State very well if they push.
Hmm. Now, mind you, this is a kid from Maryland. They've done very well with Maryland kids. He goes to
Okay.
a public school. The common denominator among all those official visits is local. So he kind of wants to stay in the Northeast, doesn't want to stay too far from home. Um, like you said, I think if Penn State pushes, they land him. I think he's a very talented prospect. He looked really good at the Under Armour camp recently. I would personally push for him, especially because you have no defensive line commits
Right.
currently. So that probably plays a little bit of a factor as well. But
High upside guy as well. Plenty
yeah,
of
yeah.
upside for him. I know we only have him as a 3-star, but he's somebody I think could, with a strong senior season, push for a 4-star, even
Hmm.
pushing maybe the rivals 250. 6'3", 230, so good size already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think is a really high end prospect at the end of the day that Penn State has a great chance with.
Hmm. Another name that's coming to campus this weekend. That's this one's actually making a very far trip, coming up from Fort Bend Christian Academy down in Texas. Max Granville. He only took an official visit so far to Baylor, and that was last month in April. He will go to Penn State this weekend, Texas A&M next weekend, and then Oklahoma on June 21st. Is there any shot in hell they can kind of pull this one off from keeping them away from Texas?
Yeah, I think there is, but I don't think it also happens.
Hmm.
If I'm being honest, I think Texas A&M is the leader. Well, it's perceived that Texas A&M is the leader here. A lot of future casts in for him to Texas A&M, and I think that's a consensus feeling across the industry that Texas A&M is the leader here. Oklahoma has always been a strong presence in this recruitment as well, but Penn State has done really well with Granville. I mean, they're the only northern school to be receiving an official visit from him. That says a lot about what Penn State's been able to do in this recruitment and how he feels about Penn State. He's spoken very highly about Penn State in the past. So I do think there's a chance that they can win this one. I just, again, we're talking about Southern schools, Texas schools, Oklahoma. When it comes to those NIL, it's hard to beat. And, at the end of the day, while he's spoken highly of Penn State, it's still, a close to 1,000 miles probably to Penn State. I mean,
Yes, it's got to be something crazy like that.
1,500 miles to Penn State. Also, you can. It's still a 5-hour, flight most times too. So it's not close to home, which I think is going to ultimately probably be a factor here. But I think they have a quality chance, but I would not bet on them to win this recruitment.
My
it'd be
favorite
a pleasant
part
surprise, though.
Yeah, my favorite part about this one is that it's student versus master a little bit. Because Deion Barnes last season playing at Penn State. Sean Spencer was the D-line coach. Sean Spencer is now the main recruiter and D-line coach at Texas A&M. So it's a little interesting Penn State tidbit there.
But I like I said though, I don't want to. I'm not trying to count them out because I do think they have a legitimate chance. It's just I think Texas A&M and Oklahoma have done very well in this recruitment. That's going to be hard to beat when you consider location, and NIL will probably be helpful as well. Not saying it's going to be a major factor, but like I've always said, it's easy to say it's not a factor until you have those zeros in front of you, and then it's a little bit big for it. Now, also notably, his dad, which could, I guess, factor into NIL a little bit. His dad was a former NFL player, so it's Billy Granville. He played a little bit for the Cincinnati Bengals and Houston Texans.
So there you go. Definitely going to be one to watch. After him, we're going to linebacker Ty Jackson, coming up from Seminole Ridge High School down in Florida. Seminole Ridge, you're assuming you're probably going to hear a lot about Florida State. I believe they get them on campus on June 14th. Georgia and Tennessee also have visits. What are we kind of thinking here? Stays down there?
Yeah, quickly, one last thing on Granville, which I guess could help Penn State. His dad, Billy Granville, is originally from Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and there's still family in the area, so that is something to consider.
Yeah, definitely plays a factor, but can't hurt. That's for
going
sure.
to Ty Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Ty Jackson is one of Penn State's top linebacker prospects left on the board. I mean, I think they have 2 uncommitted linebackers visiting this month, or 3. Ty Jackson, Zayden Walker, 4. They have 4.
You can argue Granville is an edge linebacker, whatever you want to call him. He's 6'3", 220.
But either way, Ty Jackson on campus for an official visit this weekend. Like I said, one of Penn State's top linebacker prospects left on the board, somebody they are really high on. Penn State has obviously turned down a couple of linebackers over the last couple of months because they already have 3 linebacker commits right now. And they've been selective with that 4th linebacker. Jackson is one of those players that would fit the mold for that 4th linebacker, somebody that they would be absolutely willing to take. Penn State's done a good job here, but it's going to be tough to take him away from the South with Georgia, Florida, and Florida State. But Penn State has been a consistent force in this recruitment for a while, but it's going to be tough to win this one. It reminds me of now I'm blanking on the recruitment from last year. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
I'm trying to think who it was last year. I don't even remember, to be honest. It's been so long. You just shift focus right to 2025.
Alabama linebacker. I'll find out here in a second.
Don't worry about it.
Jamonte Waller. Reminds me of the Jamonte Waller recruitment quite a bit last year. Penn State did a really good job of Waller. Waller was really high on Penn State. He ultimately decides to stay south, originally committed to Florida, and then he ultimately flipped to Auburn in November last year before signing with the Tigers. So it kind of reminds me of that recruitment in a way, that heading into the official visit. Penn State's done a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a good position to make noise here, but can they get across the finish line?
Okay. Next up, another late riser in the recruiting rankings. Brandon Finney out of McDonough High School is coming up to campus this weekend. Number 235 in the country now. Was previously not ranked in the top 250. Now a 4-star. I don't even know where he's ranked in the state. Somewhere up there. Has official set to Penn State, who I think we felt pretty good about for a while.
Yeah.
And now he also has official set to South Carolina, Georgia, and Oregon.
Yeah. So I do like where Penn State sits in this recruitment. They've, this is a high school where Penn State's had tremendous success in McDonough.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, that's not going to be the end all be on this recruitment, but it definitely helps Penn State here.
Of course.
They've done a good job in this recruitment for a while. Georgia and Oregon, I think, are both rather new in this recruitment. South Carolina has been in it for a while, but I think Penn State is the leader for Finney heading into this weekend. I'm not expecting a commitment this weekend, even if everything goes well, but I think Penn State has a great chance here to set a strong tone for this official visit or this group of official visits for Finney. And I not in a future cast territory, but really like where Penn State sits in this one. I think they have a good chance of landing him once he's ready to make a decision.
Okay, awesome. Another cornerback next up. Another guy coming up from Florida, Grayson Littleton. I think he just set a commitment date for July sometime. But he has 4 official visits coming up. Where are you kind of thinking he lands? Or where he stands, I should say.
Yeah, Alabama's had a lot of smoke around them in this recruitment since he was offered in March by Kalen DeBoer and his staff.
Yeah.
Penn State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Iowa are all in the mix, which is an interesting group of schools if you think about Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Iowa, Penn State. They got him on campus in April for an unofficial visit, which went really well. They quickly scheduled the official visit. So I think Penn State has a quality chance here, but I think it's going to be probably tough to beat out Alabama in this one. And it's a really tight official visit schedule, too. He's in State College Friday. June 3rd is Monday. He goes straight to Clemson for a visit there. Then Alabama. So I think if on one end here, if you're Penn State, you got to feel good about being the first OV of this 3 in 1 week stretch. Because perhaps by the time he gets to Alabama visit, he's a little bit exhausted from all the travel and all that.
Yeah, that's true.
And then he has Oklahoma and Iowa still. I do wonder if there's a chance that he makes a decision after this week. Just scheduling those 3 OVs really close together makes me wonder if those are, the top 3 schools for him. I think that's probably would be crazy to say. And then Oklahoma and Iowa kind of in the back there. So I would be shocked if there maybe is a decision. Well, you did say he said when did he set up?
Yeah, I got to double check on that one. I know he posted it yesterday on Twitter, I believe. I think but I mean, even if he does have that set decision, some of these decisions are just like they keep saying that they're going to make these decisions in fall and this and that,
right.
And it's like these things just jump the gun real quick.
But I don't see anything on Twitter right now. But either way,
I got to find
those 3 visits within a week really catch my eye. Just in terms of you don't see that much. I just wouldn't be surprised if there is a commitment after that Alabama visit to one of those 3 programs. So we'll see.
Next up, safety coming all the way from Kahuku, Hawaii. Aiden Manatai. That sounds about right, actually. Manatai. Now this man's just taking official visit after official visit after official visit. Just went to Cal last week. Went to Arizona last month. Going to Tennessee, Nebraska, and Washington. based on geography, you would just assume Washington and Cal have a slight advantage, but it does sound like he's willing to just about travel anywhere.
Yeah, that gives Penn State a chance. This is, I think they have a chance if they would push, but I think he's behind a few people on that safety board. So I'm not sure really is going to be a factor. But hey, we'll see what happens with this OV, see how well it goes, and we'll go from there. But with him being down the board, I think right now probably a bit. This one is one where Penn State, if they have a good visit, it's worth noting. We'll see when he looks to make a decision because perhaps it could be a factor down the road. But right now, I think it's just one worth noting, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he ends up actually even making this visit, to be honest with you, because it seems like he was originally supposed to go June 7th, but then it moved to May 31st, so he could go to that Tennessee visit on June 7th. Now, who knows what's going to happen? It's just been kind of crazy, it seems like, with his recruitment in general. But
Right.
anyway, last but not least, Antonio Branch Jr., another safety coming up from Florida, Northwestern High School. I know he has a future cast for Miami, and that's actually relatively new. It's only from 3 days. Oh, no, actually, no, I take it back. That's from last year, May 27th, not this year, May 27th. So it is an old future cast. Where do we kind of think things stand here? I know he just took a visit to Nebraska last month, and it sounds like Penn State's next up.
Apologies. Which player is this again?
Antonio Branch Jr.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was looking at a monetize Twitter page there.
No, you're good. Fun fact, though, real quick, his new head coach is Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That is a cool. It makes me feel a little
Old. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has that Nebraska OV last year, Penn State OV. Obviously, Frank Tucker recently put in that FutureCast. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for Branch. Penn State's been, a top school here for quite a while. He named Penn State one of his leaders back in January. Talked really well about Anthony Poindexter and the relationship those two have put together. Miami obviously stood out to him as well. So I think Penn State and Miami are probably the top two schools here. It's interesting that he has not scheduled an OV yet to Miami.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless our Miami site missed it, but I don't think they did. Miami's weird. So they'll have a bunch of kids like that, and they'll be like fresh off like unofficial, and they'll be very close to landing them, and then they just won't talk to them again. They're very weird.
Yeah, group. So he has no Miami OV set right now. Two more OVs that have been set according to his Twitter page are Florida on June 14th and Louisville on June 21st.
Okay.
So maybe Miami gets one set here in the upcoming weeks.
I feel like Louisville's probably Teddy a little like push there.
Yeah, that honestly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
it seems like they have a good shot, though. It seems like.
Yeah, I think they have a good shot because of Anthony Poindexter here. I'll have to reach out today or tomorrow to our sources to see where he kind of fits on their board. But this is definitely one I think to watch because obviously their top safeties this class are. Apologies. Top safeties prospects this class are Jadon Blair and Kanoa Winston are at the top.
Josh Johnson's right there too.
I think they land one of Winston and Blair. I'm not sure they land both. So if they don't land both, I think they're likely going to take at least a second safety. So Branch could fit that mold depending on how all things play out. They've had success in Miami. They've had success in Florida with Sider. So definitely one to watch here and at least keep a note of going forward. And he did tell our Nebraska site earlier this month that, or last month, that Penn State, LSU, Florida, and Nebraska were his unofficial top four, and that Miami, Florida State, and Michigan State were the other programs kind of staying in the background, just kind of, lurking, but have not made big pushes. So that could definitely be something to watch here going forward.
Yeah, definitely going to keep an eye on it. That's it for this weekend. Not a totally jam-packed weekend. I don't think I'm missing anyone, right? Double check.
Um,
No,
let's see.
it seems to be
Um,
it. So now, I don't think we're expecting a commitment as of now, but we always say that, and then there's always one or two kids that commit.
yeah. I like I said, I wouldn't. There's nobody that I would right now say commitment watch or bang the table for a commitment watch.
Mm-hmm.
If there are two players that would be of potential interest in that regard, it'd be Lex Cyrus and Yvonne Kamaju, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, I think, is most definitely going to take the rest of their OVs, and I
Yeah.
expect Lex Cyrus to probably do so as well. Kamaju, so I guess I'd go Kamaju Cyrus if I had to rank those two in terms of
Mm-hmm.
likelihood, but uh, my gut doesn't say we see a commitment this week, but
Okay.
those would be I guess, the two to watch. We could always be surprised by somebody else, but I think those are two to watch right now.
Yeah, Brandon Finney's the one I really am intrigued by. Other than those two, like it's also Brandon Finney for me, just because they have such a good relationship with McDonough. They do
Right.
really well in Maryland. He's been to campus a couple times already. I think he was most recently on campus back in March. But don't get me wrong, he's also took visits to Georgia. He's taken visits to who else was it? Taking visits to Notre Dame. He took visits to South Carolina. But I have a feeling Penn State's going to do really good with his recruitment and his official visit this weekend. But like you said, he'll
Yep.
probably take his OVs and make a decision after that.
Quick note: one player that we did not mention on that OV list was
Who that is?
Andrew Marsh.
Oh yes.
Now with Andrew Marsh, it sounds like um, he did have an OV set for this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That is no longer happening. But he told me yesterday when I reached out to him that um, he is. He said, "I'm coming during the week." I asked which week he was coming up. He did not get back to me.
Okay.
Uh, so he does have an OV coming up to Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have sent a message out to a couple of sources to see if I can figure out which exact date that is. But watch for that to be officially rescheduled here, potentially in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, Penn State wide receiver target Jeff Exiner was expected to take an OV to Michigan State this weekend. I
Mm-hmm.
am told that is now looking like it's not going to happen. Um,
Hmm.
now, it's common during OV season for visits to be reportedly canceled and then they still happen, or vice versa. So we'll see if he does, in fact, show up at Michigan State. But right now, the expectation is that he will not, and that is according to sources close to Michigan State. Uh,
Interesting.
so,
Um, on top of all that, one of Penn State's commits will also be making an official visit this weekend in DJ McClary. He will be visiting Rutgers this weekend. Now we've heard some murmurs that they're contemplating trying to get him to camp this summer. They want to see him in person. They want to work him out in person. Will that happen? I'm a little intrigued to see if it will or not. I know there's been some murmurs that they might even consider dropping him at some point, and that's not crazy unheard of, just for the sole fact that as soon as James Franklin has the rule, as soon as you're committed, you can't make other visits. Now, in some cases, it's different, like an Alvin Henderson type. You can't tell Alvin Henderson, the number 30 recruit, you can't visit elsewhere. But DJ McClary, who also actually just ironically dropped out of the top 250, has struggled at a couple camps recently. I still think he's a high ceiling kid, but he also plays some really bad competition too. It's hard to say. I think he has a high ceiling. I think he could be coached up to a really good linebacker. But like you mentioned before, Penn State has what, three uncommitted linebackers
three
visiting?
linebackers committed.
But yeah,
I think with McClary overall, I think there is a high ceiling. Like wherever he ends up, Penn State, Rutgers, somewhere else, I think there's a good chance that down the road he ends up being a really good football player. But I think that really good football player is in year 3 or year 4 somewhere.
mm-hmm.
He is a rather raw prospect. I think right now he dominates on the field because he is by far, in a way, the best athlete on the field any given Friday night. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but and there was a lot of raw athleticism there, but I think he's also pretty raw right now as a linebacker prospect. Um, he did. he did win MVP at the New Jersey Under Armour camp. And then I think he had an up and down day at the Elite 11 All 22 camp. We'll see how that goes. I think a lot of this also depends on how Penn State's linebacker board breaks the rest of the way. If they progress well for a Ty Jackson, they also have a long shot in this one, but they also have Zayden Walker, high 4-star talent, number 32 in the country, on campus. I think next weekend. If that goes well, then I think things can get interesting. I'm not ready to say that I think they're gonna that this one's gonna end up being processed. He's gonna be processed or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely question marks though about where his floor is, where his ceiling is, and how long it's going to take to get there. Because Penn State obviously a little bit weaker at linebacker right now than in some other positions on defense depth wise.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Penn State and you want to stay up top where you have been, you got to take guys that you feel can make an impact probably sooner than later. Doesn't have to always be the case, but linebacker is one of those positions where they probably have to, be a little bit more selective. So we'll see what happens there. But worth noting though that he's taking that OV.
Yeah. Other official visit, not this weekend, but next weekend. I just want to note it. Keandre Barker will also be taking an official visit to Arkansas June 7th. I don't know if we mentioned on the last pod or not, but we'll also be at Penn State June 14th. It sounds like this is not going to be an easy June or May/June period for Penn State. Some of their guys are visiting elsewhere. Some of their I don't think there's any commits actually visiting this weekend.
No commits this weekend. And then I guess just to add with Barker, Penn State has official visits scheduled with Jabri Wallace-Coleman. There's still very much a player in that recruitment. If something would happen to one of their current commits, which would likely be a Keandre Barker or Alvin Henderson,
correct.
I think they're in a very good spot for Coleman if things change there. And there's still, I think, if something were to happen, I still think they would be a decent competitor in the Bo Jackson sweepstakes as well. So
yeah. Last but not least, not recruiting related, but more TV related. It got leaked today that Penn State, West Virginia will no longer be moving. There was rumors of it all off season. They were moving that game till Thursday night. It will stay Saturday, but unfortunately it's a Big Noon kickoff. So I don't know. It is what it is. I hate noon kickoffs personally, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's noon kickoffs are all right for some games. This one I think would have been cool for a 3:30 or night game, but it makes sense from a Fox perspective. There are two big entities, are the Big Ten and the Big 12, and this is a premier Big 12 Big 10 matchup. So
yeah, I don't think there are any other Penn State games announced.
Not yet.
No, not yet. 2:30 today. If you're listening to this, it's probably before 2:30, after 2:30, but whatever. I don't understand how there's so many West Virginia fans in the comments on Twitter though saying Penn State's afraid to play at West Virginia at night, which I just find comical. But
yeah,
whatever.
it is what it is.
Yeah, they are a different breed, to say the least.
That's for sure.
We'll leave it at that. But anyway, anything else before we sign off?
No, I think that's all.
All right, cool. So if you haven't already, check us out on Spotify, Apple, or if you're listening on YouTube, hit the subscribe button down below. It's free. It's easy. Helps us grow the pod. Helps us reach out to more Nittany Nation. Helps us just kind of get more Penn State scoop out there. But for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.